Now we are going to do something a little unusual, exciting, because I think it's really important. You just heard my conversation with Reid Hoffman about corporate America and the election. Well, voters want to know where business leaders stand and why so many are quiet. Earlier today, I talked about this with two of my favorite people in the NBC universe, Nicole Wallace and Andrew Ross Sorkin. You do not see those two very often on this hour, so I wanted to make sure I shared just a little bit of it with you.
I work for Republicans. I've never demonized corporate America in my entire political life, but I'm disgusted as an American that people with everything will do nothing for people with nothing. People who don't have the money to hire fancy lawyers but are going to go out and work the polls next Tuesday. Who's protecting them? They don't have drivers and security, and that they have more courage than 98% of the business leaders in America galls me. Explain it to me.
Well, here's what's especially stupid. The fact that they're now going with the wind of, oh, things look good for Trump. This whole things look good for Trump is smoke and mirrors. Donald Trump, we don't know how this election is a dead heat. We don't know where it's going. But what I do know is Donald Trump is the king of projection. He has perfected smoke and mirrors. And he has Elon Musk more than in his pocket. And Elon Musk's misinformation machine, which is Twitter, has a huge impact on the psyche. And the fact that tons of people who Andrew and I cover are now talking day in and day out about Polymarket and the betting markets and how things look so good for Trump. Let me tell you, the only thing easier than manipulating a boy is manipulating a stock. And that is absolutely what is happening in the betting markets. It's absolutely what's happening with DJT stock. So the fact that real investors are saying to the two of us, holy cow, you're looking at the markets? Baloney. Polymarket, the biggest investor is Peter Thiel, who built J.D. Vance in a lab and presented him to us.
But I think part of it is I think they look at this as asymmetric risk. That's the explanation. And by the way, it probably starts with someone like Governor DeSantis. I think that the corporate America saw what Governor DeSantis was able to do in terms of true demonstrable retribution to the Disney Corporation in the state of Florida as it relates to taxes. I don't think we'd ever seen anything like that before, and said, you know what? A politician with power can actually do demonstrable damage potentially to our business. And I think they're looking at that and saying to themselves, we don't want that. And they're too scared to stand up, because if they were to stand up and be on the losing end of it, which, given how close things are, again, this is not my rationale. I'm just trying to rationalize why this may be happening. You have people who I would love to see stand up, and I've had private conversations with them about that. But it's not something that you're seeing publicly.
I understand all of that. And as the only person who's ever worked, on a Republican campaign, I promise you appeasement won't work. I mean, appeasing the tyrant means they think they're free. I mean, Donald Trump tried to stop the merger with AT&T. I understand everything you're saying. They have shareholders. They're too rich to notice. They're white men. They don't care about Shay Ross and Ruby Freeman. That might be true. They don't care if they live in a democracy. They're so rich they'll be fine.
I'm not even sure that's true, by the way. I don't think that they don't care.
They care.
I think they care. But you could argue maybe they don't care enough.
They're not willing. Well, they're not willing to do anything to protect the democracy with all the money in the world. But here's what I don't understand. Can any of them point to an example in human history where appeasement has protected anyone?
No. And in Jeff Bezos' case, right, he remembers when Donald Trump was president, Jeff Bezos ran Amazon, and what did Trump do because he didn't like Jeff? He raised postage prices.
And what happened to the Washington Post? It soared.
Correct.
Because in a democracy, people like strength.
The absurdity, Jeff Bezos has Blue Origin, Elon Musk has SpaceX. If Jeff Bezos thinks that now not endorsing Kamala Harris is going to get him closer to Trump, Elon Musk is always going to be Donald Trump's numero uno. It's not actually going to serve Bezos, and Trump likes punishing people.
And what is Elon Musk all about?
Oh, that's a whole separate show.
Go ahead. We've got 2 hours.
What do I think Elon Musk's about? I think that Elon Musk... Look, I'm going to actually go back in history. I've always thought that, I know it's a counterfactual, I think that many years ago, President Biden made a mistake, actually, a pivotal mistake. Very early on in his presidency, he held this conference around electric vehicles at the White House to herald electric vehicles.
I remember he drove a truck, right?
And he invited Mary Barra, who runs General Motors, he invited the CEO of Ford, he invited all of the automakers except for Tesla. And he didn't invite Elon Musk to this event, even though they were the only ones that actually make electric cars and actually deserve to be heralded on that score at a minimum. And I think that Elon Musk, in that moment, and you could say his feelings were hurt, but you know what? I actually think the one thing that's funny about people, and I've met, now that I've covered a lot of people who have a lot of money, it doesn't matter. The money is not armor. The money is not armor. People think the money is armor. It's not.
I think it's the opposite. I think those of us without the money have all the armor, and the people with the armor have the softest skin on earth. I mean, Elon Musk is the softest skinned human I see.
But I think it's something beyond. Yes, I do think the Biden.
And by the way, that was related to unions, interestingly.
Right. I think that was a mistake. However, and I think the biggest thing that is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years is artificial intelligence. What it's going to look like, how it's going to be regulated. It is absolutely the #1 thing on Elon Musk's mind. If Donald Trump were to be the next president, I guarantee he doesn't know anything about AI. He doesn't care anything about AI. And I don't believe that Elon Musk is going to be in charge of some commission or wants a cabinet position. No way, no how, no chance. But what Elon Musk will get to be is a shadow president. And he will get to call that White House and tell Donald Trump exactly what he wants and how he wants it with regard to AI. And AI is going to impact every element of our lives. And that's why I think Elon Musk sees that Donald Trump, I'm not going to say Donald Trump is a useful, powerful tool in the White House. And there's people like Musk who see it and they want to use him for just that.
Proximity to power is power.
Yes.
And if you can't get it on your own, this is the closest you can buy it effectively. I mean, that is what is happening
Let me
here.
just say this about power, because I think that what business leaders have is power. Power not just to make more money or hire more people, which is incredibly important. I'm only here because I work for a great company that lets me have these conversations. But companies also have the power to endorse the democratic system in which they thrive. And why don't they do that?
If we were really having a sort of on the couch moment, I think almost everybody, almost no matter how much money they have, they're a little uncertain about their station in life.
They're scared?
Even the ones with the money.
Scared?
Scared.
Okay.
I think that's the answer. I know it may be an unsatisfying answer, but I think
it's an answer.
If we're really trying to get it, like what it is.
I think they also use as the excuse that so many things have come up in the last 5 years that they have stood up, or they've been told to stand up.
That's true, too.
So they would argue that we stood up for this, we stood up for that.
But isn't the democracy a good one?
Yes, I agree. But this is currently the shell that they're hiding behind of, like, you know what? We did stand up. We did put ourselves out there. We need to go back to basics. The problem is this is the most important thing to stand up for, and they're not there.
Well, I just hope that when one of these big scared leaders' daughters tweets a fat picture of Donald Trump golfing, and then Trump goes and punishes their company in an arbitrary and capricious way, even if they did everything Trump wanted, that they realize that autocracy isn't the way, that the autocratic leader who doesn't care about anything except his thin skin. I mean, I think it is one of the great tragedies of this moment that Liz Cheney gave up a Senate seat. Adam Kinzinger is out on the road. Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman are scared for their lives every single day. These are people giving so much for nothing else other than that those companies are free to make all the, we have no limit on how rich you can be. You can be as rich as you want. You can have a dozen yachts in this country. That's the American way. And they won't put a single piece of skin in the game is to me, the greatest tragedy of this election cycle so far.